I'm very excited to welcome our new sponsor, Higher Nature, who have created Rekindle, which I'm currently trying out and is working a treat, a 100% natural libido-enhancing supplement for women, which contains clinically backed ingredients to give your sex life a boost. And who doesn't want that? This week's episode has been sponsored by Oh My Bod, shifting the evolution of pleasure. Hi, this is Suzanne, and you are listening to Sex Advice for Seniors. Do you know, I'm always interested when I hear about new technology, especially when it's around improving sexual health. There's not that much stuff out there, actually, when it comes to improving sexual health. So I was really excited when I was contacted by a team at Launch Medical to talk about a relatively new device called the Phoenix. And I'm with the co-founder of Launch Medical now, who's Dustin Wolff. So welcome to Sex Advice for Seniors.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on. I really, really appreciate it. I'm so excited to talk about this stuff. And I've done so many of these, but I every single time feels like the first time. So, yeah, my name's Dustin Wolff. I'm the CEO of Launch Medical, co-founder, co-inventor of a product called the Phoenix, which actually popped into my head as a concept. Gosh, it's probably 7 years ago now.
Wow.
And I had started a wellness clinic in Los Angeles, California, where we were doing hormones, and we quickly found out that a lot of guys that were coming in were having, performance issues in the bedroom. So, we started doing what's called, it's a fancy term. It's LIESWT, but it's a fancy term for a sound wave, right? They call it a shock wave, but it's really a sound wave. And what it does is it gets to the root problem, what most guys experience when they start seeing decline in the bedroom is plaque buildup, right? In the blood vessels, right? Blood flow, start having blood flow issues. Anyway, so the challenge with doing it in a clinic, and there's clinics around the US and there's a lot around the world. The challenges we identified really fast there are three challenges. It's very expensive. Okay. It's embarrassing to walk into, a stranger's office and, have to get undressed and have them handle your private parts, and it's geographically prohibitive because there's not a clinic on every corner, like a gas station. Right.
Sure.
So the expense part I found out was a huge one. So I started developing this concept in my head and and it's very simple. It's a topical type of treatment. There's no there's no downside to it. There's no side effects, and it gets to the root cause of the issue. So I started coming up with this concept and I met, our co-founder and together we developed the first prototype of the Phoenix, and this was years ago. Yeah. And we started doing some testing in the clinic on the guys that couldn't afford the in-clinic treatment. And we were getting amazing results. It took us about 1.5 years to really fine tune it. And then when we went to market, it just took off because we had solved all three of those problems: the cost, the shame and embarrassment factor of having to go to a clinic, and, the geographic, the guys could do it in the privacy of their own home. So that's how the concept in the Phoenix was born. But the technology's been around for a long time. We're talking, over 40 years, and over in Europe, this kind of stuff started, and it was really interesting. It was originally used for soft tissue repair, because what it does is
what other applications does it have?
Oh yeah, plantar, anywhere on the body that has soft tissue. So not like on your kneecap, but your calf, your hip, plantar fasciitis, your feet, your hands, your arms, your shoulders. We get guys that use the Phoenix all over their body.
Oh, so, amazing.
Yeah, because it actually causes, micro trauma, like you're going to the gym, in a good way. So your mind sends blood flow to that, that direct area to help repair, right? Along with that blood flow, you get, your stem cells are in there. It creates nitric oxide. So all these amazing benefits, right? And there's no downtime and there's no side effects to it. But we quickly, started seeing amazing results, from the product. The feedback we were getting, and I just throw this out there as a disclaimer: nothing is ever foolproof, right? And so there are some men that are not good candidates, which I'll talk about in a minute for the Phoenix. Yeah. But the ultimate part is this really gets to the root cause of the issue. And a lot of the guys that buy the Phoenix, over time, they'll stop using their Viagra's, their vasodilators or Cialises,
Sure.
or they'll use a really lower dose, right?
Right.
So we see that all the time. We have guys write in all the time, and I mean, you can go see all the testimonials on our website, but the feedback that we get is amazing. Now, we do ask our customers to take a quiz to see, if they're a good candidate for the Phoenix or not. And it was designed by urologists and our internal medical folks, but it just asks a series of personal questions. If you're honest and you plug in, the information that is specific to you, it'll give you a report, and that report will tell you, on a scale of 1 to 10, right, if you're a good candidate or not, and why, why you are or why you're not. So, there's some other health factors that, that, as that lead, to guys having, performance issues in the bedroom. There could be, diabetes, sedentary lifestyle, just all those things that happen to us as we age. What this does, what this technology does is it helps slow down and in some cases even reverse the process of, we'll call it sexual decline or erectile dysfunction.
And do you get most of your customers referred to you by urologists for men who, for instance, have had prostate surgery? Is that sort of one of the most common use cases?
We do have some doctors, recommend the Phoenix to their patients, but I think a majority, what we find that the data shows us, the majority of our customers find us on the internet first, and then they'll do their research, right? And we'll send them educational information, right? Studies that have been done by big urology groups over the last 30 years on this type of technology. And then they'll go do the research, and a lot of guys will go ask their doctors, and then they'll kind of go from there. Sometimes they'll call in if they have specific questions, because the protocol, we designed the protocol to be, safe, first of all, right? And effective. So I'll talk about that for a quick second. So it's not just one treatment and you're done, right? There's no such thing as a silver bullet. And I couldn't sit here and honestly tell you, that there is. So it's a series of treatments, and what that looks like, these are self-administered treatments. They take about 15 to 20 minutes, and it's 2 to 3 times a week, right? For let's say 3 to 4 weeks, and then you take a break, right? Because you let the body repair and heal itself, and then you do that cycle again, right? So it's anywhere from 6 to 12 treatments, 15 treatments, and a lot of guys, they'll start noticing a difference within just a few days or a couple of weeks. But some guys, it takes longer. It just kind of depends on their condition. Sometimes, we've had guys go through a full month of treatments and then take a month off, and they're like, I don't really notice much. And then on the second round of the protocol, they're like, holy cow, they're writing in going, this thing is incredible. It's a miracle. So, the protocol really, it comes down to like anything else. It's like exercise, right? You got to get daily exercise, and that's what this is. And it's one of those things that doesn't happen overnight. Nobody walks into a gym and walks out looking like a fitness model the next day. It's a process. So it's really, all about compliance.
And I assume, look, as we spoke when we were having just an introductory call about the importance of just overall health, right? Combined with a healthy lifestyle. So how much do you get involved as well with trying to get your customers to think about their overall physical health as well as just what's going on downstairs?
Yeah, so we do touch on that in some of our communication, the emails and even over chat or phone call. We're not, we're not dietitians. We're not, we're definitely not diagnosing anybody's other conditions, right? So what we try to, and you'd be surprised at the amount of people that I've been in, fitness for 30 years, right? So I live and breathe this. But you'd be surprised, and you probably already know, that the amount of men out there, either haven't been told or really don't understand how important it is, right, to take care of yourself and to eat healthy. And I'll sit here and tell you, I'm no saint. I live by the 80-20 rule, right? I'm good 80% of the time. I eat clean, healthy like that. But shoot, I'll have pizza and ice cream on a Sunday. Why not? Right.
Yeah, yeah.
But I worked for that. So we don't get too much into, trying to diagnose and, okay, well, what exactly are you eating? And, we kind of leave that up to them, but we definitely put emphasis on diet and exercise because our customers will get better results.
Yeah. Yeah,
right.
Of course. It's obvious. And I mean, I think one of the things that I was fascinated by is, look, it's, as you said before, it's not an expensive device. It's not a super inexpensive device, but compared to what it costs to go into these clinics, it's actually incredibly economical. Because
When you
when I
break it
started
down,
looking into, I mean, shockwave treatment is, it's this kind of treatment, it's relatively new, I would say, in terms of how it's being applied to erectile dysfunction, right? But
yes.
the costs of these clinics that I'm seeing are literally thousands of pounds to go in. And so if somebody wants to do this, it's not cheap. And
no.
We've got we can get PD5 medications in the UK over the counter. They're still relatively low cost compared to everything. But I mean, just to give people an idea of what we're talking about here, I don't know what it is in the States, and you can tell me compared to what it costs for one of these, for the Phoenix.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. Cost, obviously, cost is the biggest factor here. So the clinics in the U.S. From what I know, I sold my clinic to my ex-partner a while back, but I still know this. One protocol, so basically anywhere from 6 to 12 treatments, was $3,000 to $6,000, right? And we're talking you might need a couple protocols a year at least, right? So you're talking anywhere from $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, easily.
That's crazy,
right? And that's just for a handful of treatments. So the Phoenix, you got to remember these devices, even the in-clinic devices, they're creating a very powerful sound wave, right?
Yeah.
So what's happening in these machines is internally destructive, if you can imagine, right?
Yeah.
It's creating a powerful sound wave, healing sound wave. So they do wear out over time. So what we found after doing all the testing on the Phoenix, and this is going to quantify kind of the dollars here we're talking, right?
Yeah.
That we guarantee our device the efficacy of it for at least 77 treatments or more. In fact, when we first came out 5 years ago, the product was new and we had some issues, and because we're growing, and with this something would break, and okay, we'd fix that. They don't even break anymore. I mean, they just don't. We rarely get a broken one back. I mean, we're talking maybe once every couple of months. So, when you break down that treatment, it's $500 a treatment in a clinic, $500 per treatment, right? So you're looking at thousands of dollars for one protocol versus, call it $800 US, for a Phoenix that's going to last for years and years and years and years.
Yeah.
I mean, you can do the math on that. And that's why the product has been wildly successful, is because, just economically, and like I said, it gets to the root of the issue. It's look, the vasodilators, we all know those are just Band-Aids. They're just Band-Aids. They don't fix anything. It's a short-term, cheap option. But, eventually, this, they stop working, right? And there's side effects.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And, is it suitable for men of all ages?
Oh, we have guys. I'm actually glad you asked that question. So the Phoenix isn't just for guys that have erectile dysfunction issues. We have guys in their 20s and 30s who are just want to stay on top of their, bedroom performance game, if you will. Right. These guys, I mean, I would say more under their 30s. Some guys are like bodybuilders and stuff in their 20s that are just curious. But as these guys get into their 30s, their mid 30s, they're noticing, change is happening. They're going, oh, no. Because we all know, and people that see this, that when a guy can't perform in the bedroom, it's devastating, to him and his partner, psychologically and emotionally. So these guys, we get guys 30s, 40s, 50s, some guys even in their 80s that have success with the Phoenix. I'm glad you asked that question.
That's amazing.
Usually, I would say guys that are really starting to have performance, issues in the bedroom, or and they get in their 40s and in their 50s, it really starts happening. But we get guys in their 30s and up, so we're pretty proud
And
of
I'm
that.
curious to know, because it's so difficult to market these sorts of products on the
Oh,
internet. And I know
that is our
because,
biggest challenge.
so I was going to say, like, where do you do this? Because it's
It's
so
so
difficult. Even, I
it's so
mean, men's
difficult.
sexual health is slightly better, I think, than women's, which is a total disaster. But
Yeah,
marketing this is such a
it's
challenge.
it is very difficult, and in fact, from a business standpoint, it is our biggest challenge. Right,
Yeah.
the big platforms, which ones I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
They are very, very, very strict on on what you can and can't say. And look, we don't tout this as as a toy or something you would find in a novelty
No,
store,
no.
like a vibrator or something like that. This is a legit medical device, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you go to our website and you see, exactly how we explain how it works and how we position the device, it is, that's why we've been able to, really scale on these big platforms. But it is still difficult. There's a lot of things you can't say.
No, I know.
You have to almost insinuate and leave it up to the viewer's imagination. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, yeah. I just think this whole area of both men and women's sexual health, especially when you're dealing with older people,
Yes,
it's just so taboo for
it
people
is.
to talk about it, let you advertise it. It's just, the whole thing is just it's the biggest nightmare, and I don't think any brand has solved it yet. I mean,
No, they
nobody's
haven't.
nobody has solved it, because it's
Nobody
just,
solved it. It's just it's still taboo even in these days. It's interesting. What is fascinating to me is that obviously this is it's a huge industry, right?
yeah,
It's
yeah, massive.
humans will always want to have intercourse, right? So that'll never ever go away, no matter what happens with the market. That'll never go
Yeah,
away. But along with the size of the industry, you have massive challenges, right? Like you said, it's taboo. You have government, right? Heavy government regulation,
yeah,
right? So that people don't get scammed. And it's a very scammy industry, as you know,
yeah, yeah,
right?
sure.
These gas
Yeah,
station pills, try this new gadget, this thing, the other thing. And, that's what's, amazing about the Phoenix is it's backed by science. We have tons of studies, links to big urology group studies on our website that people can go see for themselves. If you don't believe us, see what all these doctors are saying about the technology,
yeah.
so that's why it's so hard to advertise, is because it is a very scammy industry,
So,
and
sort of riffing off that a little bit, I know that I've spoken to, a few people that have got tech sexual health businesses in the States, and the holy grail for them is getting in the insurance business, with
uh-huh.
getting into so that you get 100% cover with your insurance. Is there any attempt to do that? Is there any?
There is, and just to bounce off of what you just said, yes, the holy grail is, if you can get insurance companies to approve it and to pay for it,
That's right.
it changes, because look, even our device, and we have financing for our device, by the way. It's
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
$800. We work with a company called Affirm, and you can break up the payments, and a lot of guys, they'll take advantage of that, because it's still $800.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
But like you just said, having and getting insurance to cover it is game changing. And
It's a
the
game
answer is yes. And
changer.
we've been working on, there's a whole process, which, I
Oh
could go
yeah,
on
I
for
know.
hours
Takes,
about.
it's like,
We,
it's really
we have,
involved.
we have stacks of papers and stuff. You have no idea. Anyway, we are in the process of working through U.S. regulatory agencies to
Yeah.
then be able to get approval to then, or get cleared to then go to insurance companies and say, will you approve this?
Yeah,
Based
yeah.
on what the government says. So yeah, we're working on it. It could be a while though. We've been working on it for a couple of years.
Oh no, I know this is a very long game. All of this. I mean,
It
uh,
is.
it's a very long game that you're in with this one, because
It is. It is. It's very,
there's
especially when we're the only product like it in the entire world.
yeah.
There's no we own all the patents all around the world on our device and our technology and
Yeah.
how it's made. And since we're the first ones, the regulatory agencies are looking at us going, what is this?
Yeah.
They know what other things are, pills and all that stuff, but they're like, what? They're having a hard time even trying to classify it because it is, like you said, it's, relatively new.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess the thing is, it's not a diagnostic device and it's not a sex toy and it's not,
No.
it's sort of, it sits in that kind of funny space of enhancing your health and also
Yes.
preventative medicine, which is the
Yes.
big buzzword these days. But that every time I speak to doctors, at least in this country, about preventative medicine, they kind of look at me and they laugh because they say, we haven't got to the preventative part yet. We're still just
Right.
dealing with the people that are coming in with problems that we need to
Right.
solve.
I know.
Like we haven't worked on the people that haven't got problems yet. That's a whole nother group of people, right?
It
So
is. But it's like I was explaining a few minutes ago. It'll hopefully the preventative part, starts to really catch on and people get it. But there's, every day guys are getting older every single day,
yeah,
and women too. We're all aging, and there's a new crop of people coming up, every week, every year, every decade, and just getting the word out. I think with the power of the internet and leveraging, the information, we're slowly getting there on the preventative side,
yeah.
because we can see it with our device, and the guys that don't have ED, that they're buying it for optimization, if you will.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. And the biohacking community is growing just generally.
Yes.
Like the whole interest in data, people being interested in just making sure that they're keeping an optimal health. Like, there's quite a big community of people that are just interested in that. I mean, you can find those people on Reddit. So,
Oh yeah, no, the biohacking community is huge. The Joe Rogans of the world, and the Ben Greenfields and all these guys. And they have massive followings too.
yeah.
So and these guys really, they do their research and they know what they're talking about. So
Yeah.
I've been following these guys for a long time. But we do get a lot of biohackers that buy the Phoenix too.
What about Shark Tank?
It's funny you say that because, like I said, I owned a clinic in LA, so I knew a lot of people. I got to meet a lot of people over the years.
Yeah.
And I'll say this: one of the executive producers of Shark Tank was a good friend of mine. Is to this day. So I went to her with the Phoenix when we first came out, and this is the gal. She's the head honcho, right? She says who goes on the show and who doesn't, right? And she looked at me and she goes, Dustin, she goes, we've had people come to us with products that are, let's say adult in nature or sexual in nature before. They will never ever put that on primetime TV, not on any, I mean, look, if it were some streaming service that wasn't, NBC or ABC or one of these, big, conglomerate companies, maybe, but we tried Shark Tank and they shot us down.
What a shame. I think I'd love to see you on Shark Tank.
Oh, trust me, it would be a dream of ours to get on Shark Tank.
Yeah.
Who knows though? Maybe I'll go back to them and see.
Well, you know what? I know you don't distribute yet in the UK, but when I did actually film for the equivalent of Shark Tank in the UK called Dragon's Den, it's a very similar program. It's been going for ages. And I had a tech business myself. And I actually auditioned and went on the show and filmed and everything. And my segment didn't air, unfortunately, which was a shame. But, but there was an American guy on our show. It was like a crazy kind of Christmas tree base, something odd. Anyway, but he flew over from LA to be on the UK Dragon's Den because similar to Shark Tank, it's got massive viewership, massive.
Interesting.
And it seems like they take people from other countries. So just saying, you might want to look at Dragon's Den.
I want to look into it. Dragon's Den. Okay.
Dragon's Den. You can do that. I have in my notes that you created a men's sexual health week. Is that correct?
Men's sexual health what?
Week.
A week?
It said what inspired. I got off your website that something aligned with Launch Medical and Men's Sexual Health Week. Maybe that was just some random.
No, maybe that might have been a typo. No. That's. I mean, our industry is already strange enough. That would be even more.
How does the Phoenix align with your mission to promote just general sexual health awareness? Because that's certainly what we're all
It's
about here at Sex Advice
yeah,
for Seniors.
exactly. Well, here's how I try to explain it, right? And kind of put it in terms that, I can understand as the average guy is this, the Phoenix, we refer to, it's like, it's a tool. It's a tool and your toolkit, right? And your other toolkits can be, your daily exercise, your diet, your this, your that. If you use a pump, for extra blood flow, things like that. This isn't, like I said, it's not a silver bullet, but it does get to the root issue, right, of the problem. So, we would never say this solves that. This will solve, all your problems in the bedroom. But
Yeah,
we'd say, look, this is a tool in your tool belt, right? Follow the protocol, try to follow a healthier lifestyle, and you will
yeah.
see results. So I mean, from the data that we track over the years, we have about a 94% success rate.
Wow. So would you
But
say then, listening to that often, people only use, we talked about PD5, Viagra, Cialis, all that kind of stuff. They only use them when they actually have a problem. Would you say that the optimum usage of this is actually to start, to use it on a maybe less frequent basis if you don't yet have a problem,
yeah,
but just as a form of rejuvenation of you know, the cells and all the stuff in your penis?
yeah. So, okay, that's a great question. So, let's just say there's a range of 1 to 10 guys that don't have any issues in the bedroom getting
Yeah.
erect, and then you got your guys that are a 10 that are severe cases, right? So the guys
Yeah.
that are that get over the 5, the 6, the 7, and 8 that are more severe, yeah, they're going to need to do the protocol more often. The
Sure.
guys that the guys that are, maybe they don't perform like they were 20, but they're still pretty good rock stars in the
Yeah.
bedroom. They'll use it, let's say, several times a year. They'll do 2,
Yeah.
3, 4 protocols a year. Maybe they'll do a month on and take 3 months off and then do another month,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So, but yes,
Yeah.
to answer your question, yeah, the guys that, aren't really seeing a huge, issue yet, they'll definitely buy it, and they just won't use it as often.
Sure. And would you suggest that it would work more effectively if it was combined with like a supplement, like a oxide
Oh, for
supplement?
sure. 100%. Yeah. Yeah. Because nitric oxide, as we both know, is huge for blood flow. So
Yeah.
I take a supplement, a nitric oxide, gummy every single day just for
Do
blood flow.
you?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I've been
it's good for
really
your
looking into
mind.
that. Yeah.
No, I take one every single day for nitric oxide. So yeah, when you combine it with other, modalities, let's say, you're
Yeah.
gonna see better. You're gonna see better results.
Yeah. Interesting. I mean, I think you're right. Look, there's a lot of stuff out there, and some of most, I would say that what I've noticed is that most men know very little about their own dick, actually. like,
Very little.
honestly, much less than I thought they would. and,
Well,
and they don't
if
seem
you
to
think
really
about it,
even
it's not like
understand how it works,
you
mostly.
can't just go do an EKG for your penis, on the corner clinic. You know what I mean? So you're right. But you're right. They don't know, how it works and why it works and why it doesn't work. You
No.
know, they just say, "Oh, I'm just getting older," or "Oh, I'm just overweight." Well, let's talk about, actually the real causes. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah. So, like, people that know go, oh, yeah, of course I do pumping. And of course I take nitric oxide. And of course I do this. And it's like they're in this very small group of people over here. And then the
sure.
majority of people just are completely living in the dark about anything.
Oh,
And I know every time that I talk to people like yourself, they're like, I don't even understand, you know, what she's going on about. So they have to go to your website, Justin. It's basically the thing, and see the
yes,
device itself, right?
yes,
Because that will give you some clarity around what the Phoenix actually looks like,
yeah.
and
What
you
it looks
know,
like, how it works, right?
yeah,
A lot more information, studies, you know,
yeah,
all that stuff. Our quiz is on there if you want to take the quiz,
yeah. Yeah. And I
and learn
and
more.
I think looking at your device and thinking back to things, for instance, like laser, hair removal products like laser
Yeah. Laser hair
devices.
removal. Yeah.
Laser, like years ago, you couldn't go anywhere but into a salon or into a specific place to do that.
Yeah.
Now there's all these handheld devices that
Yeah.
people buy. You can get them in the pharmacy, you can get them pretty much anywhere, and
Yeah.
people have accepted that this kind of technology is perfectly safe to use at home. And I suspect that in a few years' time, we will start to see that things like the Phoenix, for instance, are not seen as something that is a bit, what is that? But, I don't need
Right.
to go spend thousands in a clinic. I can just go online and buy one of those, and then I can just do it at home. And
Yeah. It'll become
unfortunately,
it becomes more normalized, if you will.
will. It's just
Yes.
unfortunately first mover advantage in your terms means that you have to
We're paving the way, and it's very, very difficult. I'll say that,
yeah.
to be the first. So,
Yeah. But
but we're very proud of it, and we're very proud of it. We're very proud of the results that our guys get, and the stories that we hear are very heartwarming.
yeah.
So it's like at the end of the day, we're helping people too.
Yeah. And that's
So
what it's all about. But
yeah.
and well done you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Listen, it's not just me. I have an amazing team, that works alongside me. So,
Yeah.
partners, teams, affiliates, all those folks,
Yeah.
they help this whole thing go around. So yeah,
Cool.
it's very exciting.
Thank you so much for appearing on the show. We will be publishing links. I think there's probably going to be some sort of a promo code maybe
Sure.
for
Yes.
all
For sure.
our
For your viewers.
listeners.
Yeah.
And you will be able to see where you can actually find the Phoenix and be able to have a much closer look at what it's all about. But I hope this has been a really great introduction to a really interesting innovation that is potentially life-changing for quite a lot of men.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you.
It was amazing. Bye, everybody.